They called her a mere assistant, too quiet, too ordinary, too inconsequential to matter. But when the grand recital hall fell silent in panic, it was Samantha Reed who stepped forward to play the impossible and remind everyone that true greatness often hides in plain sight. The marble corridors of the Arlington Conservatory thrummed with life. Fingered scales rattled in practice rooms. Stern critiques echoed from ivory-laden studios, and the occasional frustrated sigh punctuated the lofty calm. Amid this swirl of artistry and ambition, Samantha Reed moved almost imperceptibly. At 38, her cinnamon hair drawn into a simple chignon, her forest green blouse and charcoal slacks as unremarkable as dust motes in the sunlight, she preferred it that way. 6 weeks into her role as administrative aide, most instructors scarcely registered her presence, and that suited her fine. "Miss Reed, these folders should be sorted by composer, not by era." Dr. Vivian Harper's crisp voice rang out. The head of piano studies, perched behind her walnut desk, peered over gold-rimmed spectacles at the messy stack. A stickler for order, she flicked a manicured finger in exasperation. "Right away, Doctor," Samantha replied softly, collecting the sheets with practiced calm. She loved music. She carried its scores in her heart, but here her expertise went unnoticed. Dr. Harper swept away, heels clicking a metronome across polished granite, leaving Samantha to reset the piles. As she worked, her fingertip brushed the notation of a Liszt transfiguration, one she had played on the world's grandest stages before vanishing 5 years ago. A small smile tugged at her lips. "Miss Reed, don't you have Madame Fournier's program notes to type?" Professor Martin Hayes's gruff drawl startled her. The elderly composition maestro peered through wire-rimmed glasses, his tweed jacket perpetually a half-twist too small. "Of course, Professor Hayes." Samantha stashed the folders and accepted his sheets. He watched her rearrange the pages with effortless precision. "For someone with no formal training, you understand these works remarkably well." He nodded, though skepticism lingered in his pale blue eyes. "I've learned by listening," she replied mildly. Hayes harumphed, then shuffled off to scold another student for misplacing a metronome. Later, Samantha approached Madame Celeste Fournier's office. Door ajar, dozens of marked-up drafts littering the mahogany desk. Madame Fournier, the French performance coach, whose reputation for exacting standards was legendary, looked up over her gold earrings. "Finally, Reed, these program notes are a catastrophe. I need them retyped with corrections by tomorrow's scholarship recital. Do you understand?" Her accent dripped aristocratic impatience. "Yes, Madame Fournier." Samantha accepted the papers, noting the crimson edits that marred the margins. "And be flawless. We cannot afford another embarrassment, especially after last week's debacle." Samantha closed her mouth around her retort. That debacle had been a missing accent in Fauré's Pavane, an error Madame Fournier herself had authored. Samantha only bowed and left, yet as she passed the grand piano in Madame's studio, the same Liszt transcription gleamed under the lamplight. "Is Andrew Clark performing this tomorrow?" she ventured. Madame Fournier lifted a perfectly arched brow. "Yes." "Quite ambitious for a scholarship candidate?" Samantha paused, then slipped away before Madame could reply. Morning of the scholarship recital, the conservatory's foyer swelled with donors in tailored suits and pearls, faculty exchanging polite nods, and nervous students cradling instruments like lifelines. Samantha arrived early, her dark blazer replacing yesterday's blouse, but her demeanor unchanged. Unassuming, attentive. Today's prize, the Carlyle Scholarship, a full tuition award that could launch a budding musician's career. "Miss Reed, thank goodness." Professor Hayes waved her over, clutching a pristine stack of freshly printed programs. He distributed them rapidly to sponsors before turning to Samantha, voice conspiratorial. "Can you manage things backstage? These students are fraying. Consider it done," she said, tucking the remaining programs under her arm. Backstage was a whirlwind of bow ties, shaking hands, and whispered mantras. Andrew Clark, the conservatory's prodigy, sat hunched on a bench, palms sweaty. His Liszt transcription of Beethoven's Fifth was the final piece. "No pressure?" "Andrew?" Samantha knelt beside him. "Ready?" He looked up, eyes rimmed with tears. What if I freeze again? Samantha's heart clenched. She recognized that panic, had known it intimately. Trust your fingers, she murmured. Play it like you're telling a story. He blinked, uncertain. You? You know the piece? Let's just say I've studied it. She paused, then added softly. Waves, not thunder. Think of how the music flows. Andrew pocketed his trembling hands in his lap. Waves, he repeated, closing his eyes. A hush swept backstage. Dr. Harper appeared, clipboard in hand, eyes like twin spotlights. Clark, you're on first, and Miss Reed, keep that green room quiet. Samantha melted into the shadows, heart pounding as the first student ascended the stage. The recital hall's acoustics were perfect, a double-edged sword for mistakes. The opening performances passed in a blur of minor stumbles and heartfelt crescendos. Then came intermission, and with it, growing tension. Donors murmured about delays. Madame Fournier swept into the green room, her face taut. The Dance Foundation guests are arriving. They demanded the Beethoven. Clark must play. No one else prepared it, Hayes fretted. We can't substitute. Samantha hovered, cheeks warm. Something inside her stirred, an echo of old ambitions. The orchestra pit, once her dominion, called to her. What if? Cancelling is out of the question, Madame said. She paced. And Clark? He sat trembling. With a deep breath, Samantha stepped forward. All eyes snapped to her, jaws slack. I can play it, she said, voice steady. Gasp rippled. Dr. Harper's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. Madame Fournier's lip curled. Miss Reed, this is highly irregular. Your administrative staff. I was also a concert pianist, Samantha interrupted, calm but firm. And I know this piece. Silence. Faculty exchanged bewildered glances. Professor Hayes' greatcoat fluttered as he swallowed. Dr. Harper's lips thinned. Miss Reed, you can't just volunteer. Samantha met the dean's ice-purple gaze. If Clark cannot perform, I will. It buys time for another solution. A beat. Then Madame Fournier straightened, pride flickering in her eyes. Very well, but if you falter, the scholarship is lost, and you'll resign. Samantha inclined her head. Understood. Moments later, Samantha approached the grand Steinway. Curtain lights glowed like benedictions. She seated herself, adjusting the bench as if slipping into an old coat. The audience watched. Rich patrons, proud parents, skeptical faculty, all expecting embarrassment. Then her fingertips met ivory, and the hall transformed. The opening bars rang with authoritative clarity, Liszt's virtuosic reimagining of Beethoven's anthem reborn under a master's touch. Samantha's hands flew, every arpeggio shimmering, every chord alive with purpose. Waves of sound flooded the room, power tempered by elegance, bringing the audience to rapt stillness. In the front row, Dr. Harper's false composure cracked. Her clipboard drooped. Professor Hayes, mouth agape, pushed his glasses up in astonishment. Madame Fournier, standing at the side, allowed a single exquisite tear to fall. When the final chord faded, an electric silence reigned. Then the hall erupted. Thunderous applause swept every seat. Standing ovations, bravos, whispers of "My God, she's extraordinary." Samantha rose, bowing in humble grace. Andrew Clark slipped from backstage to witness the miracle. His eyes shone with gratitude. Dr. Harper rushed forward, beseeching, "How?" Samantha smiled gently. Music chooses its own time to return. As donors swarmed to congratulate her, the conservatory's walls themselves seemed to hum a new refrain, one of respect, redemption, and recognition. And so, in the hallowed halls of Arlington, the quiet assistant revealed her true self, reminding everyone that the deepest talent often waits patiently in the shadows until the moment it must shine. Within a week, the Arlington Conservatory appointed Samantha Reed as its artist-in-residence, a position created expressly for her. No longer relegated to filing cabinets and program notes, she now had her own studio, a private practice salon, and a small administrative team. She would teach masterclasses, coach promising students, and lead the piano department's curriculum review. At her first faculty gathering in her new role, Samantha found herself face to face with the very instructors who had once dismissed her. Professor Hayes offered a tentative bow. "Miss Reed, I apologize for underestimating your talents." Madame Fournier nodded in solemn agreement. "Your courage today has restored my own faith in artistry." Even Dr. Harper, whose icy demeanor had thawed only at Samantha's final chord, extended her hand. "Welcome, Miss Reed. I look forward to learning from you." Samantha accepted their apologies with quiet generosity. "We all teach each other," she replied. Masterclass magic. Her inaugural masterclass drew students from across the conservatory and several guest pianists from neighboring institutions. The grand salon buzzed with excitement as Samantha arranged a single grand piano at its center. Chairs formed a semicircle around her. Behind them, a gallery of framed recital posters and historic instruments bore witness to decades of musical excellence. She began with a discussion on approach and mindset. "Technique is vital," she told the assembled, "but without heart, it is hollow. True music emerges when we connect our experiences, joy, sorrow, doubt, to every note." Over the next 2 hours, she worked closely with each student, guiding a shy freshman through Chopin's Nocturne, encouraging an advanced senior to infuse Debussy's Clair de Lune with poetic color, and demonstrating a nuanced phrasing in the Liszt transcription that had upended the scholarship recital. She moved among the pulsating silence like a conductor in her prime, eyes alight with the fire of shared discovery. Afterward, students lined up to thank her. Among them was Andrew Clark, the star who had faltered under pressure but found new resolve after her counsel. "You changed everything for me," he said, voice cracking. "I feel free to play again." Samantha rested a hand on his shoulder. "Remember, Andrew, play for yourself first." Institutional transformation behind the scenes. Changes swept through the conservatory. Under Samantha's guidance, the faculty revised audition standards to prevent bias based on origin or appearance. Dr. Harper spearheaded a mentorship program, pairing students with resident artists, while Madame Fournier rewrote the performance coach's handbook to emphasize empathy alongside excellence. Even the scholarship competition underwent overhaul. Board members, humbled by the near-disastrous recitals, insisted on blind auditions for preliminary rounds. Performers now played behind a screen until judges cast their ballots purely on musicianship. The Carlyle Scholarship Fund expanded thanks to renewed donor enthusiasm, providing additional grants for travel and recordings. Challenges and compassion. Not everyone welcomed the new era. A faction of traditionalists grumbled that Samantha's sudden rise was a novelty, that true conservatory tradition favored a steady hierarchy. Whispers circulated that Dr. Harper might retire rather than cede influence. Yet Samantha met resistance with compassion. When rumors surfaced that the percussion department felt slighted by the piano department's reinvigoration, she organized a joint recital, pianists and percussionists performing Ravel's Concerto in G side by side, demonstrating that diverse talents could coexist in harmony. The concert sold out within 2 days, silencing critics. A mentor's reward. Months passed, and the first cohort of masterclass students prepared for their senior recitals. Samantha watched proudly from the front row as her protégés performed Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, and contemporary works with newfound confidence and depth. Families swelled the audience, wiping tears as they saw young artists transform. After one particularly moving performance, an ethereal rendition of Debussy's L'Île Joyeuse, Samantha found Gregory Palmer waiting for her backstage. His face radiated gratitude. "I knew you were extraordinary, but seeing you shape others, that's a gift, truly." Samantha ruffled his hair affectionately. "You have so much promise, Gregory. Always stay curious." An unfinished sonata. Despite her visible success, Samantha remained grounded. She continued to work late nights in her office, typing program notes when required, ensuring every administrative detail matched the artistic brilliance she inspired. Her humility became legend. She would arrive unannounced in student recitals, clap loudest in the front row, and slip away before anyone could praise her. One evening, Dr. Harper joined her at the piano under the studio's warm glow. "May I ask something personal?" she said hesitantly. Samantha nodded, resting her hands on the keys. "Why hide so long? Why return in disguise?" Samantha closed her eyes, considering. Then she played a gentle series of chords. A simple yet profound phrase from her own favorite nocturne. "I needed to remember why I loved music beyond acclaim," she explained. "Here, among students and scores, I reclaimed its magic." Dr. Harper's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for returning, for teaching, for reminding us that music transcends ego." Legacy in motion. By the end of the academic year, the Arlington Conservatory had transformed into a beacon of inclusivity and artistic integrity. Recital halls brimmed with diverse talent, faculty appointments grew more meritocratic, scholarship applications soared as word spread of a school where every voice mattered. At the year-end awards gala, Samantha stood beside the newly donated Carlyle Award, its gleaming plaque bearing her name as artist-in-residence. The president of the board raised his glass. "To Samantha Reed, whose courage, compassion, and brilliance have rewritten our conservatory's future." The audience, students, faculty, donors, rose in unified tribute. Applause thundered through the hall once more, not in shock this time, but in heartfelt celebration of a woman who had shown that true artistry lies not in titles or trappings, but in the courage to share one's gift, to uplift others, and to transform even the most hallowed institution from within. And as the echoes settled, Samantha looked out at the faces she had inspired, and knew that in nurturing the next generation, her own masterpiece would continue to unfold.